What's up?
I don't know who that makes me think of, but
I think it was. If I would have extended it, it would have been like those "What's up" commercials. But yeah. Anyway.
or Louise from Ant-Man. I think he's making fun of the commercial in Ant-Man, but that's where my mind went to.
Oh my god, I love him so much.
Actually, speaking of Marvel, last night I
Like you need an excuse.
yeah.
Speaking of Marvel,
Speaking of which, I'm not thinking of it 24/7. But
sometimes you think about Star Wars
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Or video games.
or Star Wars video games.
Or Marvel video games. Or Marvel Star Wars. No, I'm
See,
kidding.
you contain multitudes.
I can. But because for anyone who doesn't know, I've been reading through like all the comics from 1961 with the first Fantastic Four comic all the way to present. And I just finished 1969. And so now I'm in the 1970s.
All right. Woo.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What?
I was like, oh, finally you're up to like 50 some odd years ago. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I was born in the 70s.
It's been super fun though, because it's interesting reading about, or it's interesting seeing how all of the like the storylines start to get actually like better. Because obviously it was like early 60s. The stories were not very, it was much more geared towards children than it is now.
Okay.
But the storylines have gotten like better. And I mean, it fights a lot of social injustice. Like one of the most recent Avengers comics fights a lot of racism.
Oh,
So
well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like there was a lot
That's
of
1969. So I was like,
well, I feel like there
Applaud.
was a lot of that, like better, at least. Okay. I'm trying to think of how to. It's always been interesting to me that the stereotype of like the comic book nerd or, you know, those kinds of fans and then lumping in like video game fandom and stuff like that is that it's always a bunch of white guys who get frustrated when anything like diversity comes into play. And, you know, when it feels like to me, those genres have always been a little more on the they've been on the more forefront, like, you know, there's like a 1940s.
See, but you're talking about the difference between Marvel and DC here now.
Are like DC bros the worst or something?
No, it just in my opinion, Marvel was way more
Like
progressive than DC was.
Well, I remember
Still is.
Superman. Wasn't it Superman? There was like a Superman comic where he was like, the most American thing is to be like accepting of other people and their differences or something. Maybe it was Captain America. I don't know.
It's definitely Captain America, that's for sure.
And then Star Trek, the TV series in the 60s, they were breaking all kinds of barriers.
The cat just jumped onto the fucking table.
I think she realized she didn't have enough space, and so she panicked last second. Okay, sorry for that.
Scared the shit out of me.
Sorry for that interruption. Anyway.
I was trying to play with her to calm her down before
she's
our
a
thing,
little,
but
she's a little wound up. But anyway, I mean, Star Trek like broke all kinds of barriers and stuff, you know, and so it's always been fascinating to me when like there are corners of those fandoms that are like super racist, bigoted jerks, and I'm just like, do you not even like, I also realize there's a lot of like sexist things and probably racist things and ableist things that like exist in the comics as well. Like, you know, there's been complaints about how women superheroes are dressed versus male superheroes, you know, things like that. But
there have even been like, there was actually one comic of the X-Men that was like, Marvel does not support this type of thinking. anymore. This
wow.
this is purely for like it wasn't like historical, but it was like purely for like having all of the comics in the app.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like, Marvel doesn't stand by this anymore because
Yeah, there's a
and
lot
it
of
was weird
disclaimers
because
like that now.
it's like the X-Men, which is the whole thing was racism for the X-Men comics because, you know,
Yeah.
mutants versus not mutants.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Where were we? What were we talking about?
I mean, I had just jumped into.
Oh, you just were talking about where you were in the comics.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think it's interesting as well because, like, I can tell how the art style is getting better too. And the covers, I'm guessing the covers get better first because you want to entice people to read those comics.
Sure. Yeah.
So the covers are usually better than the artwork that's inside of the comic.
Okay.
But then over time, the artwork inside of the comic starts to match the cover, but then the cover then gets better.
Oh, it's like a race.
So it's like the cover has been the thing that slowly has escalated or elevated all of the artwork and stuff, which is super interesting to me because I'm like, oh,
there's probably a whole study you could do on that.
probably. It was just because my whole guess is that it's all for marketing. It's also like people see the cover and are like, oh my gosh, that artwork looks way better than it has in the past. I'm going to buy this comic.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's the truth, but that would be my guess.
Do you remember the one person I went to graduate school named Molly? Mm-hmm. She her dissertation was on like doing like a rhetorical analysis of like comics communication and design and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, her dissertation has been downloaded a lot more than mine.
By comic nerds.
It's just a more interesting topic than mine was.
What was your topic? Wow, you can't even remember.
I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of how to do a non like super field based, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's basically about the mission statement of nonprofit organizations as a genre.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So sounds thrilling, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I was on the edge of my seat writing it because I was afraid I would fail.
Oh, I remember those stressful years for you.
Yeah, it was not fun. And I remember the one time you and Dad specifically left and like went somewhere so I could have time to finish my dissertation. Like it was getting towards the end.
I remember that too.
And as soon as you left, our dog June had a seizure, like the worst one she had ever had. And then an hour later, she had another seizure.
Oh my gosh.
And then an hour later, she had another seizure. And I called the vet and they were like, sometimes it happens and, keep an eye on this, keep an eye on that. But sometimes it happens in succession like that. And, she should be fine. But it was just like, are you kidding me?
Jude was like, no, fuck you.
I was like so stressed out. I was like, why are you doing this to me right now, dog? And it was like, of course, there was like stuff everywhere. Yeah. Anyway, so. She should have known better. She should have been more respectful of my time.
Yeah, no kidding. What a jerk.
Yeah, jeez.
Another thing I'm excited about getting into the 70s is that now all the like events are gonna start happening. Like before it was like all like standalone comics, but now it's gonna be getting to the point where the superheroes and stuff start mixing a lot more and like big events start happening. Like I know the Kree Skrull War is going to be the first one, I think, that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Where I think Captain Marvel gets killed. And
spoiler.
Well, the first Captain Marvel, that was a guy.
Okay, fine.
And then
that's cool.
And then it becomes Carol Danvers. But yeah, it was but yeah, I'm super excited for all that stuff. And then especially since some of the most famous events of all time happened in the 70s still. So it's like, it's kind of crazy to think that some of what is considered the best events happened 50 years ago.
You mean like events in comics world?
In comics.
Okay, I was like, what are the best events? The Vietnam War?
Cold War.
What are you talking? Like, what's...
No.
Woo! I'm sorry, the best events did happen in the 70s because that's when I was born.
Yes. But one of the most popular ones is the Phoenix Force saga.
Oh, okay.
And the Dark Phoenix saga
Yeah,
for
Dark
the
Phoenix.
X-Men.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
1975.
Anyway, what's our topic today?
Our topic for today will be hidden, not hidden meanings, but like hidden rules. That's what it is.
We should have never announced the topic and just been like, you have to figure it out. Like a hidden rule of our podcast is that we
don't tell you anything.
We shoot the shit for the first like 5 or 10 minutes before actually getting to a topic.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. So explain the concept of hidden rules.
Oh gosh.
Or do you want me to?
Don't get me started. Except for it's for our podcast, so I will anyways. But,
yeah, that's kind of the whole point, man.
Work, school, family, anything that just has those like things that you wouldn't necessarily like tell someone your family, work, or whatever does, but there's like a hidden rule there that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah. So
I think one of the most like common ones for men that's just like a general one is never go to the urinal directly next to another guy.
right.
You always leave a space.
Unless you're at a trough.
Unless you're at a trough.
Which is the
Then
most,
it's one space.
which is the most disgusting thing ever.
Yes. I hope I never see a trough again.
Oh my God.
That was a desperate
whoever
situation.
decided was like, hey, we should just put a trough and have all the men just pee into it is like, what the?
Are you kidding me? Their boss was probably happy they saved them so much money for plumbing.
Yeah, that's true. There's so much. Yeah, so much is cost savings. But yeah, so those expectations people have, but they don't always necessarily express.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones. Actually, I don't know. Both school and work are really big ones.
I feel like school and work, yeah, probably have the biggest ones. I think you encountered that at your school when you transferred.
Yes. I think I've just experienced that in school in general.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, because I feel like you are a very logical and straightforward person, and so if a teacher didn't like outright tell you something, you were like, well, why would I think to do that? You know?
Yeah, like I got a bad grade on something because I didn't use enough color or something in my presentation, but I was like, it doesn't say anywhere in here that this needs to be a flashy
Well, there was a
presentation.
poster board that you were supposed to do, and you hadn't grown. That school was like pre-K to high school, like to 12, like it was the whole gamut. And so people who had gone there the whole time probably, you know, had developed over time, like these are the expectations for presentations and poster boards. And you had to put together a poster board presentation for something, and you just sort of like wrote on the poster board, and you didn't write very large either.
I'm not a very large writer at all.
No. And so you didn't use like big markers and colors and all this stuff, which now I looked at that when you had it completed and went, oh, this is probably not what they're looking for. But that's because, you know, I had gone to school and I remember, you know, but your assignment didn't say anything about that. It didn't say use colors, use large print, use markers, it was just create a poster board and put this on it. And that's exactly what you did.
Yep.
And so that was a really fascinating moment for me because I realized that
I'm watching your doomed child's presentation.
Yes. I was like, dang, this kid's in for some trouble. But no, I always kind of figured those things out in school. Like even if something wasn't expressed, like I got the game of school, you know what I mean? So I figured it out, kind of like you figure out these things in your video games you play, and you're like, oh, you go over here, you go do this, and you just figure it out because you know how video games work. Me, I knew how school worked, you know? But then also, of course, I have experienced those things. So now I know for sure, like, yeah, it's what they're looking for. But you hadn't had that kind of presentation expected of you in any of your classes yet. So you'd had no idea. And I did find it fascinating that they took points off because, you know, I thought once we explained it, I can't remember. Did they ever give you any of those points back?
I don't know.
I don't remember, but I remember having the conversation and saying,
I don't think
you
so.
didn't put it on there. So why would he know this?
I don't think so, because I think there were a lot of assignments from that class that were like that. And I think
Yeah,
at
there
the
were.
end of the semester, I had like a D. And I think I was like messed up because I had never gotten, I don't think I had even gotten a C before.
I don't think you ended with a D though. I think
I don't think so
you
either.
brought it back up. But
Yeah.
I do remember I don't remember how they had it, but you had like some kind of like counselor or like academic advisor or something that did go and talk to the teacher to say he has a point, you know. But yeah, so it was really interesting, and that school was particularly difficult because it was pre-K to high school, and
it was a college prep school too, so there was just like a big load of everything.
Yeah, and you were entering at 8th grade, so there were a lot of hidden rules there that were very frustrating for you.
I destroyed math though.
You did, yes, but
that's because I'm pretty sure I already did the class before
Yeah, you said a lot of that stuff was familiar, but yeah, so
because they didn't count my gifted program class from my previous middle school, so I just took the same class again, basically.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because I went from algebra to algebra when I could have been doing geometry.
You went from algebra to algebra. Well, I had algebra 1 and algebra 2 when I was in school. So, I mean, there
but
could
I
have
took
just
algebra
been
2 after geometry.
Okay. Oh,
So.
Right. Well, anyway. Yeah, so I feel like there are rules. I think families are actually a really good example of it as well, because when you bring someone home to meet your family, you don't always think to say, like, oh, just so you know, my parents don't like this type of joke, or we always do this before dinner, or you don't think about it because it's normal to you. Like,
That's why both sides of Shelby's family thought I was just quiet, but I was just observing because I didn't want to do anything wrong.
You were taking field notes.
That's what I do for everything. And so everyone always thinks I'm quiet at first, but I'm just observing and like making sure I get the gist of everything first. Because I don't want to like fuck it up immediately.
Right. Yeah.
So, because some people just don't have the same sense of humor about something, or
Yeah.
But there's also, especially with family stuff, there's a lot of family stuff that like expect physical touch, and I don't want physical touch. I don't want to hug people I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like that's a big one
that's more of a generational one.
Yeah, that's sort of an expectation in a lot of family situations, particularly of children, which is disturbing if you think about it.
Yes.
Like, we're training our children that it is normal for them to hug people they don't know, and that's always been an interesting thought to me, where there's so many things where they warn children of this type of person and that type of person, and there's so much child abuse and all that stuff out there, and yet in some people, if you suggest, well, children should have agency over their own bodies, they're like, you're being ridiculous. And they're the same ones who would claim that they're all there for the protection of children.
Yes.
So that's always been fascinating to me. I remember there was a book that came out, a children's book that was about consent, and it was basically saying like, this relative wants Jeannie to give him a hug, but she doesn't want to, and that's okay. Like, it was kind of like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And this Matt Walsh, not Matt Walsh the funny actor from Veep, Matt Walsh, the jerky right-wing commentator who made that stupid movie. What was that movie? like lady ballers or something. It was so dumb. Anyway, he did like a whole video on how this book was ridiculous and it was wokeness gone wrong and all this stuff. And then he was like, my kids will do what I tell them to do and they don't have agency. They don't get consent. They just do what and I just thought, wow, dude, you're the ones who are going off about different people being pedophiles, but yet you're like
contributing to the cause.
Exactly. It was just oh, it was wild. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like there's like the family ones, the school ones, work ones are interesting too because you can get
in trouble for things you don't know about.
Yeah. And I think some of them are hidden rules of sort of like the workplace culture, right? So like maybe it's okay during an all hands, all staff meeting or whatever, we don't bring up this topic, or it's understood that you address things in this way or whatever. But then there's a whole other level that I don't know if it would fall under hidden rules or if it just be more like unspoken expectations where bosses just do not give clear direction or have clear expectations, and yet they expect you to meet them.
Yeah, like the previous coffee shop I worked at, he didn't tell us anything. We were never, it was always word of mouth between employees about how everything was supposed to go.
That's not a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and so both of us would be like, well, the boss told me to do this. And then the other person would be like, well, he told me to do it this way. And then it's like, what do you even do then?
Right.
Because both people were told different things by...
Or they interpreted it differently. But either way, you don't have some sort of thing to refer to.
Also, he had told me about the same thing in two different ways.
That's helpful.
So I don't think it was misinterpretation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got through it. But apparently he was also just paranoid of everyone. So I don't think it mattered what we did right or wrong. I think we were going to be on his bad side no matter what.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's something I think until I want to say my first exposure to the thought about hidden rules in a like an explicit way. Like I probably sensed at different times, like, oh, I didn't realize that, that was a thing here or whatever, may have expressed that, but never really thought about it as, oh, there are hidden rules places and that's problematic. My first introduction to that was training called Bridges Out of Poverty. And you know what? As I'm saying that, I feel like maybe some people have revealed some problematic things about that training since then, but I'm not sure. But regardless, there were these rules of poverty, middle class, and wealth. And it was a list of sort of these like unwritten rules of the different classes, so to speak, and how if you're from one or the other, you might not understand what the hidden rules are in each situation. And so in particular, it was focused on the fact that, for the bulk of society is made to middle class rules.
Yes.
And so somebody in poverty is not maybe going to understand if they get into certain situations that, this is what the expectation is of you. And so sometimes as middle class individuals, we would make judgments of people in poverty because they didn't adhere to our rules. Yeah. And we think of them as just being sensible. That's just how you do it. That's just, why would anybody do it any other way?
Common sense.
It's common sense. And that was a thing that I had to learn to get over, because it was, oh, I was raised this way and this is how all the people around me act. So that must be the way. And so if anybody acted contrary to that, then there was something wrong with them. And that's just such an interesting thought to me, because how would anybody know if they didn't grow up? Like, I did not grow up in abject poverty. So how would I know if I went into a poorer neighborhood, how would I know if something I said or did was going to be offensive?
Yeah.
And yeah. So
Some people also just have individual hidden rules about things, especially when it comes to stuff like that. Like, there are like some people that might find something racist that most people don't, or something that
right.
they find is sexist that most people don't, or something along those lines. And it's always just it's always confusing
There's
because you don't want to offend anyone.
no. Well,
Some people do,
I
but
was gonna say, I'm sure some people do, but that was an interesting. Okay, so I have a couple different thoughts, and they're all competing for first place in my mouth.
very strange way to put that.
The like brain to mouth funnel is clogged at the moment, like with different ideas.
Brain to mouth funnel.
We used to talk about that all the time in high school and be like, your funnel's broken. But okay, I'm just gonna pick one. Now I don't remember what any of them were. They're all jockeying for position, and
They all left.
Oh my gosh, what was it? Oh, when I was working for an organization that tried to do more equitable hiring, there was somebody who did an interview for a job, and they were asking. So I was part of the group of people doing the interviewing, and they asked my impressions. I was like, I don't know, I just felt like she was really unprofessional. And they were like, why? And I listed a couple things, and they were like, well, what if it was this? What if it was that? Like, what if the reason she was wearing that was because of this? And why was your expectation that, because this person was wearing a white tank top and was out like on the roof of her building or something, and it was really windy, and so we couldn't hear her very well, and you know what I mean. And I was just like, and why is she wearing a tank top? Why doesn't she have like something on? Like that doesn't feel like appropriate dress for the interview and all this stuff. And the one person was like, well, what if this is a financial thing, and they live in an apartment with 4 other people because that's the only way they could afford the apartment, and the apartment was too full, so they had to go up on the roof, and unfortunately for them it happened to be windy, and that was terrible, but what other choice did they, you know what I mean? It was like all these like kinds of ways of understanding it, and saying like, was that actually unprofessional, or do you have a specific idea of what professionalism is that might need to be questioned? And so that was a really kind of eye-opening thing for me, where I was like, yeah, I've been kind of groomed into this idea of professionalism that has been set mostly by like older white dudes for centuries, like this is what.
That's why it feels weird for me to like wear something nice to go to an interview for a coffee shop. I'm like, I'm not even going to be wearing something that nice at a coffee shop.
I always wondered about that too. I always wondered, like, could you just show up in jeans and a t-shirt? And I don't even remember what I wore when I was younger.
Because like we just wear like semi-formal pants and a t-shirt that has the logo on it.
Right.
So like,
yeah.
Should I wear something more dressy than that to an interview?
It's interesting that you say that, because I do think there's a danger of being overdressed.
Yeah.
Which I will admit affected my opinion of somebody who was interviewing for a job I was hiring for.
Really?
Yeah, because the job was a part-time job. It was a very like kind of grassroots organization, and it was working with high school students, and it was just the overall feel of our organization was the dressiest you got was wearing a logoed polo shirt and pants. Like that was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but what if their parents told them that they need to look all...
Well, that's the thing. This guy came in dressed to the nines. He had the fanciest business suit I've ever seen. Like ever. And I was like, this is a part-time job, man. Like, chill. And but I mean, I don't know if if the suit itself caused a, or if it was just the whole package, because he also was acting like we were so lucky that he
that's
deigned
annoying.
to appear.
That's annoying.
And basically was like, all but said the words, if you don't hire me, you're morons. Like, it was So I think that just the suit played into that, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know,
Attitude.
but I was a little like, dude, okay, you're way overdressed. This is, you know, you're going to be like hanging out at a high school and, you know, so it was, yeah, anyway.
That's kind of funny though. I think the thing is for on the other side as well is, and I think part of this is just not, you're so used to your business that you don't think about it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And
yeah.
so you don't tell the person that's interviewing all the information that they need to know about the job.
That's true. Yeah. Yes, that's true.
So I've gotten so used to asking questions about things because or asking them like, what is every position, or like, what are all the things I'm going to do day to day? Because I don't know why a lot of interviewers don't think about that. But
well, because they're asking to learn about you. Then they expect you to ask questions to learn about the job.
Yeah, and I think that's
I have
somewhat an unfair expectation
Yeah.
because then if you hire them because they seem like a good fit, but they didn't ask you any questions, and then they might quit because you have too high expectations for them.
Yeah.
When instead you could have told them, and then they could have
You
come
could
in
have said,
with the
here's what the
expectation.
job is.
Yeah.
Here's what you should expect. Plus, I think in interview situations, you're a little worried about asking, like, what their impressions are of the questions you're asking.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and so I think asking questions in an interview is like one of the most difficult things, because you're like, okay, I have a million things I want to know. I just don't know if it's appropriate to ask it in this interview.
That was some trouble I had with getting the most recent job I have right now, because I hadn't been working for a few months already.
Right.
And so I was super nervous because if I didn't get this job, then I was going to be screwed on money.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be screwed on a job either.
Right.
And so, but I mean, first of all, she was a great interviewer. So I actually don't feel like I didn't need to ask that many questions.
That's good
for her.
That's rare.
I know, right? And, because I totally had like a whole list of questions on my phone that I was so prepared
Good
to
for
ask.
you. Oh, I'm so proud.
I still asked a couple, but she seemed like pleased that I was asking these questions. So it was a good job experience.
Well, probably because it showed you have initiative and
Yeah.
you're thinking about things.
But there's a certain level where it's like I wanted to ask is because I didn't ask for working in the previous coffee shop if there's any positions to move up, and there wasn't. And so I got screwed on any future chance in the job.
Good question.
And so I then asked her that, but I was like, am I gonna come over like arrogant that I'm like gunning for the next level position right away?
Because an employer hears that and thinks, oh, this person has initiative and will take, will I can't think of any other word other than initiative, and it's not just going to be like show up for work, kind of schlep around and leave. You know, that shows, you know,
and
initiative.
Remember, there's also the question about like what happened at my previous job and why I
hate that
quit.
question, because they don't, you shouldn't be like negative about a previous employer.
I was,
but you also are like, I wasn't fired. Like it was toxic. You know,
that's what I was super. Well, yeah, I guess I wasn't even fired. I technically quit. It's just that they, stopped scheduling me
you quit and they didn't
notice.
accept your 2 weeks, like basically. Yeah.
And
which is always fascinating to me, because employers will be so ticked off if you don't give them a 2 week notice. But there are plenty of employers who are just like,
for the last 2 weeks.
Other employers are just like, oh, well,
like, thanks for screwing my money over.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, I was just completely honest. I was like, this might totally screw me over because these are two women that own coffee shops within the same area that probably know each other, because both of the coffee shops have been around for a long time. But I was like, I also didn't want to lie because I feel horrible about lying about stuff like that. And
so other stuff is fine. Just stuff like that you don't like lying about.
Well,
I'm just joking.
Yes and no. It's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, that took me a moment, I think, because I was just like, I don't know if I actually want to say this or not.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was just like,
that is hard.
it was toxic.
But I think you did one of the in your interview. It sounds like, and basically on the job, based on other things you've told me, it sounds like you do one of the best things you can to counter hidden rules, which is ask questions. Like I think there's two things that could really help get rid of hidden rules. One is, or to help you navigate it, it's asking questions. To help avoid them being there in the first place is for the people in some form of power to have better communication to begin
Yep.
with. So at school it's teachers, administrators. At work it's managers.
I think what helped for this coffee shop, it could just be that they are just an organized coffee shop. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it is a very popular one, they moved to a bigger location and they recently got a ton of staff. So they either needed to get organized because they're going to have such a big influx of people, both staff and customers, or they were probably going to fail moving. And so it could have just been that I came in at the right time, that they already had all of their stuff organized out. But
that's the extreme danger. So there's benefits and drawbacks of all kinds of different sizes of businesses, right? So I think a benefit of a super large corporation is that there are very clear rules. There are very clear policies and procedures, and there's usually very clear communication. There's communication channels set up, and often an entire employee whose job it is just to be dedicated to, monitoring communications with the staff.
I would love that job.
What?
I said I would love that job.
Well, there you go. Try to work towards that. It's actually I've been that person, and it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge because people communicate differently, and then also, how do you get the flow of information from the people that need to give you the information to share with the employees? But it's But the danger then, that danger in the opposite size of like a small shop is that often you don't have enough employees to do all the tasks that need to be done, and so it feels like taking the time to sit and assess and communicate is a luxury, but it's not. It's a necessity. But it's because it's not the task that is producing revenue or whatever, creating a product or, whatever the thing is, it feels like...
Which is why a lot of businesses don't have a communications thing set up properly.
Yeah, it's so strange to me how it's not the first thing for most places. It really should be, because proper communication is essential to keeping a business running. And so one thing, and I'm never going to claim to have been perfect with this, but one of the things I've tried to do over the years to improve that for myself is to try to ask more clear, I want you to do this. Okay. Do you want this or this or this? And when do you want it by? And you know what I mean? Like ask a bunch of questions. And then I also got into the habit of sending summaries after meetings because especially of working with bosses who are kind of all over the place and they're just flying by the seat of their pants and they're like, that's what you get to do too. We would have a meeting and I would take away a certain understanding. And then later on they'd be like, no, I didn't want you to do that. I wanted you to do this. So I started sending summaries and saying, oh, hey, we just had this meeting. I just want to make sure we are in agreement that my next steps are this and your next steps are that and blah, blah, blah. And then if they write back and say, yes, that goes in my CMA folder in my email. Do you know what CMA stands for? Cover my ass.
Oh.
And so when they go, well, why didn't you do it this way? I just pull up that email and I go, well, I expressed to you, and it's kind of funny. I just saw a humor animation, like I think that's their title, humor animations on TikTok that did this very thing where the boss was like, I don't think you need to send me a summary every time. And the worker was like, yes, I do. Clearly I do. So anyway, so that's how I've tried to avoid problems. So I'll try, if I'm in a place with bad communication, I'll try to at least make sure my communication is good, but it's very frustrating.
It just reminds me of one time in high school. Apparently a bunch of people got like a really low grade on their stuff. And so my teacher emailed all of those people in one email, by the way, so everyone could just see everyone else that
you all got a bad grade. Yeah. You suck.
And I was part of the email, and I was like, I thought I got like 100% on that. Mm-hmm. And then she sent an email again. She said, sorry, Malcolm, you don't belong in this list.
You all suck, but Malcolm's pretty cool.
I know. I was like, I feel so bad. I'm like, I just saw everyone that didn't do well on this assignment, and then I was told in front of everyone that I like did really well on the assignment, and so I don't need to be here.
Oh my god.
I was like, oh no.
God, that is not. You should not be sharing that information with everybody. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Oh dang. That's bad.
Well, I think she wanted them to like work together to like fix their stuff, but
okay. Oh my god.
Yeah, that stressed me out, and I didn't even need to do anything, and I was stressed out the whole time. I don't think I ever responded to either of the.
You're like, cool. I'll just pretend this didn't happen.
I was like, all right.
Oh my goodness. All right, so. I said, obviously the ideal would be is people in management, people, heads of families, school administrators, teachers, whoever has some sort of authority, to be very clear in their communication, right? And then for everybody else to also be very clear with their communication.
I'd say the most important thing is just don't get frustrated with people who ask questions.
That's a good one. I didn't even think about that. I always think about questions as a good thing. But sometimes I find myself apologizing to people because I'll be like, I'm sorry, I ask a lot of questions. And I shouldn't.
That's what I told when I first started working here. I was like, just to let you know, I'm going to be asking a ton of questions.
That's my boy.
And everyone was like, oh, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Like, that's good.
I think one of the, we could do a whole podcast on asking questions. But one of the things I would want to throw out there for people who might actually like be listening to this and going, oh man, this is actually, I have this problem at work. I have this problem at school. Thanks for the tips. One thing I would add is to get better at asking questions is to
just get good.
Just get better. Get better. You suck.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. That was aggressive.
This is how I get my aggression out from the week. Is to sit down with something and try to think. I'm trying to think of how to do this because I was taught this in a context of studying the Bible. So I'm trying to think of like a different way of maybe studying something for school or reviewing. Okay, let's pretend you have to review a document for work or whatever. Sit down and write like 30 questions about that document. And you're going to write like 10 and you're gonna be like, those are all the questions I have.
And if you are a teacher that says you should have been paying attention when someone asks a question, then,
don't do that.
Then just go fuck yourself. That's just horrible practice.
Okay, that was a nice little thought there, Malcolm. Anyway, as I was saying, seriously, like try to get yourself to ask a ridiculous number of questions of something because it'll begin to retrain your brain to not, because you're going to make assumptions.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't make assumptions. And so try to go past your assumptions. Like, well, if I didn't already know or think I knew that, 2 + 2 = 4, what would I ask here? And you might be, well, does two, what is 2 + 2? What is 4? What is,
what is equals?
Which that's like a ridiculous way of saying it, but I think you get what I mean. It helps you like realize like the questions you could be asking.
Political science.
Political science?
No, maybe not political science. Just anything where you need to like break down human thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else to say other than, yeah. I just feel like I want to go on and on about the question thing, but I don't know what else to say in this moment. But I just feel like that's super, super important, is to try to get past those initial blocks.
Yeah.
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 Don't mock your mother.
I will.
I know. I'll mock you right back. I don't care.
Fair enough.
Bless you, Don. Anyway, well, I think that's our signal.
Yeah.
Well,
Bye.
time to go.